What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Coming at you with yet again another perfume experience upload. And continuing with the sample theme, today I will be talking to you guys about Zoologist Camel Extrait de Parfum. So here we go. Let me focus this for you guys. So you got the sample packaging here, which is gorgeous. And then on the inside, it's a very nice presentation. So you have a bit of a write-up, which we will go over, as well as the top, mid, and base notes. And for those of you that don't know, Zoologist is a brand that tries to emulate natural perfumes. So things like deer musk, using styrax, ouds, and whatnot, but they lean more towards synthetic materials. They don't use any natural ingredients because they're trying to avoid getting implicated in or supporting animal cruelty, so they try to emulate those traditional style perfumes using synthetics. And that's how the brands are. And this brand is a Canadian brand, is based out of Toronto. And again, with this brand, they do the same thing as Frederick Malle. They do hire different perfumers, so different noses, to compose the creations that they end up putting out there. And they have some really interesting ones. I have a lot of samples, but they have new ones that have came up since. But for today's purposes, we're gonna go over through Camel. So, Camel, the perfumer for this is Christian Carbonell. On a trek through an unforgiving desert, starting point and destination are indistinguishable from one another. Terracotta-hued dunes twist and writhe, their shapes ever shifting. Only the merciless sun and the loath constellations can be trusted to point the way. Weighed down by treasures, some tempting the eyes with their glittering sheen, others enticing the taste buds with exotic aromas, the camel plows towards a far-off marketplace. Water is but a dream for now. The taste of sweet dates, a distant memory. There is nothing but an endless ocean of sand. This is beautiful. I mean, you can't hate on that, okay? So this is the musing for Zoologist Camel. And with respect to the top notes, you have dried fruits, frankincense, palm date, and rose. For the heart notes, you have amber, cedar, cinnamon, jasmine, myrrh, and orange blossom. For the base notes, you have civet, musk, oud, sandalwood, tonka bean, vanilla, and vetiver. So as you guys can see, there's so much going on in here. It is insane in terms of how many notes, ingredients are in this. So what we're gonna do is, momentarily, we'll start with experiencing this. It's been over a year since I've put it on, so this is gonna be as good as new in terms of an experience, but as per tradition on this channel, ladies and gents, it's cafe time. I've already taken a few sips because I needed them, okay? Oh man, this is good. And today's coffee beans are courtesy of, actually, you know what? I don't know. So these are Canadian roastery that sources organic free trade, but they never mention where they get the beans from. So I don't know. They're light roast though, so I do like light to medium roast, higher caffeine content, and I just like the more raw, more acidic taste of the bean, which when you go full dark roast, you lose quite a bit of that. Anyways, I digress. You guys are here for the perfume experience, okay? So, here is the sampler, as you guys can see. The juice, if I can get the camera to focus, is orangish and very nice center bottle, quite some nice graphics on it, and camel extrait de parfum. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna go with the spray. So all right, so I've put a couple of sprays there, and wow. Okay, let me first show you guys. So I sprayed about here, and it isn't that greasy or oily, and that's again, even though you would think that there is a lot of resinous, oily quality to this just because of all the ingredients in it. Again, all of it are synthetics, so you're not getting this greasy, oily residue you would get with the natural ingredients. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And even though the juice is orangish in color when you spray it, there's no stain. So for those of you that do get concerned about stains, there's no staining effect to this. Now, let's take a whiff. Wow. Sometimes where a synthetic sometimes does a better job than the natural thing. This is, wow, this is just, this is stunning, okay? Let's see how I can explain this. So, if you ever travel to the Middle East, I'm gonna have to reference that, and walk through the traditional markets or the bazaars or the souks, so kind of like in old Cairo or old Dubai or old traditional Bahrain or any of these countries that have the old traditional souks and bazaars. That's what this reminds me of, and I've traveled to these places. So that's what it reminds me of. It's incense, it's mystic burning in the air, it's dried fruit, it's spices, it's florals, it's crowded, it's traditional, it's hustle and bustle of the place. It's such a trip. This is a trip, okay? This is traveling to a souk or a bazaar without having to leave your home. You're going through an olfactory trip, all right? And that's what this is. It's mind-boggling how they've managed to capture quite a bit of the dry fruit sense. So if you've ever been in a, never mind even just going to the Middle East, which is very prevalent there. So if you go to any of the more whole food oriented, wholesome, organic stores, and you go into the nuts and the dried fruit section, this is gonna seem very familiar, okay? And it's not in a bad or off-putting way at all. It is actually delicious. And it's more spice leaning rather than sweet. So even though there's vanilla in here, you barely pick on the gourmand note in here. It's actually more on the sort of spicy, resinous, musky, oudy, incensey side of things. This one is a bit hard to pin down because you have so much going there. So I'm just gonna look at the notes. So 100% you're getting dried fruits, frankincense, palm date, rose, maybe rose. I'm not really picking on it, but the dried fruits, frankincense, and palm date, 100%. You are getting that in there. If you're into incensey based scents, you're gonna love this. So this also reminds me a bit of Frederick Mahl's Dawn, because Dawn is very incense heavy. This, it's not the same quality. I find the incense in Dawn is much nicer, but it's a similar profile. Maybe less, a lower step on the continuum of that incense profile, but nonetheless, you get a bit of a feel of that Dawn frankincense in here. In hard notes, you have amber. I can see that, a bit ambery. Cedar. That would be very hard to pick on for me. Cinnamon, yes. But it's very subtle. It doesn't stand out on its own. It works in a complementary way to the other notes. Jasmine, yes. And the jasmine here is beautiful. It is not indolic at all. It's just a very pleasant, kind of like a young jasmine. So a jasmine that just budded and opened up. That's the kind of jasmine in here. It's not a mature jasmine. Myrrh and orange blossom. Orange blossom, I'm not too sure, but myrrh, yes. And the beautiful thing about this is that it has this, so it's very dry fruity, incensey, resinous, floral, with a touch of tropical fruit, and I'm not sure where that is coming from, but it is there. Now, the base note, you have civet, musk, and oud. Guys, again, these are synthetics, by the way, they're not naturals. Nonetheless, you do get the musky facets, you get a bit of the oud. The civet, on the other hand, there's a touch of creaminess to this, and that's where the civet comes in. Now, keep in mind that the civet here is synthetic, it is not natural, but it is fantastically done. And the reason I say that is because synthetic civet tends to be very piss forward, okay, in terms of a scent profile. More even than natural civet. Natural civet, if you know how to handle it well, you can get rid of that facet. But synthetic civet tends to have a very strong pissy profile. And this is non-existent here. You just get this creamy skin scent facet to it, and it's gorgeous. There's sandalwood. I can see that. That would also accentuate the creaminess along with the civet, because that's really that warm, cozy feeling combined with civet is fantastic. Then there's tonka bean and vanilla. And tonka bean does have a vanilla-like taste to it and scent. So it's a double dose of gourmand in here for the tonka bean and the vanilla. But it's very subtle. It's very understated. It's just there in the background, enhancing everything else. And it works fantastically with the dried fruits as well as the palm date, because on the one hand you have a dried, low sugar, in a way, fruit, okay? Because palm dates also, if you've ever had them fresh, they're not actually overly sweet. They're very subtle in their sweetness. They become really sweet once you dry them. And that's just a chemical reaction, I guess, from the drying process. Anyways, I digress. Last but not least, vetiver. I can see some green facets to this. Again, not overly green, but it's definitely there, okay? It's overall, this is probably my favorite out of all zoologists. It is stunning. Now, the reason I will say this right now, I haven't bought this, and I only have them as samples, is that their price point is very similar to the actual authentic stuff. And while this is a great formulation and I enjoy it a lot, if you're gonna spend that much money, I'd rather put towards the natural stuff rather than the synthetic. And again, it's a very noble cause behind this. They're trying to avoid animal cruelty. And that's not to say that if you're buying a formulation like this naturally that is gonna be coming from sources that are cruel, that's not the case at all. As a matter of fact, some houses like Melig actually strive to source, for example, their civet from farms in Ethiopia that are certified humane and organic. So it really does depend on what you're looking for, but I think I'd rather have the real deal than a synthetic, even though, as I've stated earlier, this is actually better than the natural stuff. But that's also, even though it's better, that's kind of also its fault, because some of the beauty in natural ingredients is their imperfections. There's perfection in imperfection. There's beauty in imperfection the same way there's beauty in perfection. It's kind of like, when you buy something that's antiquish, you buy an E-Type Jaguar, which is a very old car, okay? It's a gorgeous car. And you're buying it because even though it's old, there's beauty to it. There's beauty to its age. There's beauty to its silhouette online. Even though you can go get the new E-Type, excuse me, like E-Type RS or any of these new ones, Jaguars, that performs better. But there is something about the older car, even though it's not as perfect relative to the newer technology, it still has a sex appeal and appeal. There's something that is just attractive about it in its imperfection, again, relative to the newer models. And that is the case with Camel Zoologist. As a perfume, I do find that it is better in terms of formulation and scent profile than the natural equivalents. But, and that's its Achilles heel, it is too good. The natural stuff has its flaws. So an example of that would be for civet, it can have a bit of a pissy profile to it if it's not handled well, okay? Oud can be a bit fecal, okay? So there's these imperfections that within the natural formulations we seek out and we appreciate. We recognize it as, okay, it can be a bit off-putting, but somehow it works. And that's part of the artistry and part of the beauty of the natural ingredient. And what this does is that it provides you all the upsides of the natural ingredients without any of the downside, because it's all synthetic. They took all the good qualities and good facets of, let's say, natural musk, natural civet, natural oud, and they took those good qualities and they left the bad ones and they presented you in a package for the perfect formulation in imitation of a more natural, traditional perfume. And while it is fantastic, it takes away a bit from the experience of the natural perfume and the natural ingredient. Sometimes perfection isn't perfect, and sometimes imperfection is perfect, if that makes sense, okay? It's kind of like the statues they have in the Louvre in France or in Italy, some of those old marble statues, where the statues of the ladies missing the arms tend to be more captivating and alluring versus a fully intact statue where ladies have the arms still intact. Why is that? Because there's beauty in imperfection. There's a certain appreciation for the fact that this is the statue that got damaged over time, but somehow it's more alluring and captivating relative to the complete one that survived time. And that's really the best way I can explain it. I'm not by any means shitting on this. This is gorgeous, gorgeous scent, and I love it. But it's just too perfect. It is too perfect. I would recommend this to somebody who's trying to break into artisanals and natural oils, who's more familiar with Western scent profiles and never really went into the Indian, Middle Eastern sort of scent profile, which use a lot of those natural ingredients. This would be a good starting point because you can train your nose to get into these. But once you get your nose on the real deal, it's not the same. It's not the same. And again, Not to take away from this, fantastic formulation, love it. But if we're gonna imitate the real deal, maybe sometimes don't make it too perfect. Don't try to eliminate the imperfections of the real deal, okay? But again, this has its own market. It has its own customers that really value the brand and what it's trying to do in its mission. So I'm not going to take away from that. Now, this is so nice. Okay. In terms of seasonality, I think this is not too musky or too resinous to the point that you can't wear it in summer or spring. You can actually wear it across all 4 seasons. And the reason I say that is that even though this is more resin, musky, oily leaning, in terms of its scent profile, it is not a very strong musk. Not like, let's say, Musk Ravager, Frederick Malle, not like Tibetan musk, for example, from Ansar Oud. These ones are a bit, oomphy on the musk, and it's better to wear them in cold weather versus warm weather. Otherwise, I find it, at least with my own skin chemistry, a bit overbearing. But this is good for all seasons. It's so well done, so well balanced, that a season isn't an issue. Time of day, again, you can wear this in the morning, afternoon, or evening. It's very versatile that way. It's very utilitarian in the way it's formulated, that you can wear it across the whole day. Now, the tricky part is context and setting. This one is a bit rough because you can wear it anywhere, but it's also not really fitting for either, let's say, a formal setting or a casual setting. It's just such a unique scent that it's tough to pin it down what kind of setting you can wear this in. You can wear it in either. You can go formal or casual or semi-casual events, but it's not... I'm trying to think of how to put this. It's not your traditional formal setting scent or a casual scent. It's not a clubbing scent. It's... You know what? I'm gonna create a new genre here. It's a creative scent. So if you're doing a creative endeavor, this is the kind of scent you want to have on. If you're adventuring, traveling, exploring new places, this is the kind of scent you want to put on. I think these are much more befitting context for this scent versus, let's say, trying to narrow it down to, or pigeonhole it into, okay, this is a formal scent or a casual scent, because this doesn't work that way, at least in my humble opinion. Now, with respect to performance, so this is not beast mode, okay? On my skin, it is not. It performs fairly well, slightly above a skin scent. So again, in terms of projection, people are gonna have to enter your personal space to really pick on that scent. It doesn't project far, so people aren't gonna whiff you from a distance, okay? In terms of trail and silage, similar, people need to enter your personal bubble where that scent will linger very close to your skin, but you're gonna have a little bit of a cloud of that scent around your skin too, and that's where people are gonna pick on it. So it's not beast mode, but once people are close to you, it's a delightful scent. It's a nice, adventurous scent, and I do think people are gonna have an appreciation for it, but it's not a compliment getter. That's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing about the scent is that due to the nature of the resins in it, I think you gotta be a bit of an older gentleman or lady to pull this off. Younger people aren't gonna have an appreciation for this. Like if you're a college kid, nah. That, like, go get Versace Eros or Dior. I don't think you're gonna appreciate this nor like it as a college kid. But if you're more in your late 20s, 30s, you like to travel, you like to adventure, you like photography, you like exploring, even, you know what, you like doing bushcraft, okay? So if you're you don't want to wear this while hunting because prey will smell you, but if you're into bushcraft, like doing something that involves being in nature and open air, this is a perfect scent for you. Perfect, okay? What else can I tell you? In terms of Yeah, soft cover age. Yeah, I think really that's it in terms of the coverage of this. Would I recommend it? 100% yes. Okay, and the beauty of this is that zoologists sell samples. They sell individual samples, they sell package samples. So if you don't want to get the whole package of their whole line, you can actually pick one sample, and they're not expensive. I mean, relatively speaking. Again, if you're more into, like buying synthetics because you don't want to take the risk of supporting animal cruelty per se, perfect for you. This is, relatively speaking, I would say, and I wouldn't say with 100% because I don't know that for a fact. I say this is more vegan leaning if that's something that matters to you in terms of a scent profile. So, 100%, get your nose on it. It's easy to do that. You can get samples from Zoologist's website. They're not that expensive. And once you get your nose on your sample, and it could be camel or any of the other ones, which I will cover later on in other uploads, cop a bottle, okay? Because their bottles also are gorgeous. So if you look here, and hopefully the camera can capture this, this is what the bottle presentation looks like. It's a very, very beautiful bottle. I think most people buy these for the bottle design before they buy them for the scent, which is one, if you watch some of the other uploads on YouTube reviewing this, everyone comments on how gorgeous and stunning the bottles are. They're heavy, they're old school style, and I think you can get them in crystal too. But anyways, verdict on this: get your nose on it, get your wallet on it, cop it, okay? It's a fantastic composition. Zoologist is a great perfumer, and you can't go wrong with them. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our iteration of this sample upload. I hope you enjoyed this, found it helpful. If you feel obliged to share your comments, opinions, input, feel free to do so in the comments section. And as per usual, very much appreciate your time and attention. And I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.